Hello and welcome to our first episode of Recliner Wrestling Review. I'm your host, Jared Isaacs, here with a special co-host. I want you guys to meet a good friend of mine. He is from the St. Louis area, and we'll get to know each other throughout this episode. Everybody, please welcome my good friend, Mr. John Reese. John, how's it going, babe?
It's good. Glad to be here. Excited to finally get this show off the ground.
Yes, for sure. You and I have been in talks and in works with this for what seems like months now, so I'm too very excited to finally get it launched and get it going. So
Yeah, and I feel like it's been in the back of your head for years.
a long time. Yeah, like as soon as I heard the word podcast. In fact, that's actually how I found out about podcasting in general was through wrestlers and stuff. Stone Cold and Chris Jericho, that kind of thing, who had podcasts of their own. I'm like, oh man, wouldn't that be cool? And then now, fast forward 7 years later or so, and everybody on planet Earth, minus us until now, have a podcast. So I'm happy to join in and throw our hat in the ring as far as wrestling podcast. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to try and, just make it fun, make it simple, and do a variety of different things on this podcast.
absolutely.
We might talk about a pay-per-view. We might do a top 10. Just a whole lot of different stuff. What else do we have planned coming, Jared?
And we can get into that as it goes on. But like you said, so we'll be featuring specific shows or pay-per-views, specific wrestlers, maybe a specific time frame. There's a lot of avenues that we can take. Even having maybe some potentially some guests in studio or something. And just kind of growing a community, if you will, of fellow wrestling fans. And honestly, that's kind of my idea for the show anyway, is not so much, I don't want to necessarily be the go-to spot for reporting news and that kind of stuff, because nowadays everybody's got the internet, so everybody can find the answer. So I don't want to repeat old information. I actually kind of want to use my brain and my weird ways of thinking and looking at things and yours for just being an absolute sponge to the business and soaking up a lot of knowledge and stuff, and really having a really good understanding of why things happen and the booking decisions and stuff, and that kind of thing. But maybe putting our own twist on it, like this was good, but how could we have made it better? That kind of thing. And I'm sure opinions are very popular. Everybody's got one, but this is just going to be ours. We're just two wrestling fans, and we're here to give you our stance. So,
yeah absolutely. Totally agree. Where do we want us to get started?
Well, I think it's only fair if we're asking people to join us and get to know us. We probably ought to tell them a little bit about us, and kind of let the fans in and let them get to know us. So, yeah. I guess we could start with talking about how we met. You wanna tell them how that all came to be, that you and I crossed paths?
Yeah, sure. So, like Jared said, I am from the St. Louis area, and for my bachelor's degree, I moved to beautiful Springfield, Missouri. Uh, one of my favorite places on earth.
Bright lights, big cities.
A city.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
There's bright lights in Branson. That's close by.
yeah. Yeah.
Springfield's got Bass Pro
Right, yeah. We're moving on up.
parking lot, like. But yeah, I moved to Springfield, Missouri. Like I said, I really did love it there. I loved my time there, and I got my bachelor's at Missouri State. But while doing that, I am, as you guys will come to find out, a avid toy collector. And at the time, I transferred to the Springfield, Missouri Toys R Us.
Okay.
And
Transferred. So you were actually, when you were in St. Louis, you were already working at Toys R Us up there then, yeah?
yes. I was KB Toys, then Toys R Us.
Oh, so you went through the change and everything, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I was 6 years in the toy world, and then I went to Springfield. And Jared was also slaving away with the Jeffrey the Giraffe.
Rest in peace. Rest in
Yeah,
peace.
R.I.P. But slinging video games and selling toys and
Yep.
hanging out in the wrestling aisle.
Pretty much. Yep. So, and
But yeah, I transferred there, and Jared was hanging out there too. And I don't know, we didn't really talk a whole lot that first
that
couple
first,
months.
yeah, that first little bit we didn't, but it was like somehow, it's almost like a cult, if you will. Like once the cat gets out of the bag, like, hey, this guy likes wrestling and you like wrestling. Oh, really? And it's like, boom, instant connection, and just you totally kick it off. It's like, I have a tattoo, you have a tattoo. Let me see yours. I'll show you mine. That kind of thing. And it's that way about wrestling fans, and that's what I love about wrestling fans. As much as there is that I don't really care for as far as wrestling fans, I love the sense of community and the loyalty to one another. So I think that's kind of really how we hit it off. Not just being coworkers and working kind of side by side. Our departments were fairly close to each other. But I think it was probably just, hey, you want to come over and watch Raw one night? And I mean, it's, we've been buds ever since.
Yeah, it snowballed to watching Monday Night Raw together every week, then to, well, let's order the pay-per-views, brother. And,
Right. Yep.
Eventually, we hit the road and even caught a Mania together.
Oh, yeah. So. Yep. That was great, too. Yeah. And that's, man, what has that been? That's been, I think I quit in 2007 at Toys R Us. So it would have been before that. It would have been like 4 or 5, somewhere in there.
I moved to Springfield in 2007.
Did you? Okay. Well, so maybe my years are messed up. So I started in 2003 at Toys. Maybe it was 2008 that I quit. I can't remember. But
yeah, I mean, you hung out for a while, but you had like other jobs going on, and you were just keeping Toys R Us. It's like, it's extra money.
Yeah, it's play money. Yeah. Yep. And thankfully I didn't have a wrestling figure collection addiction like some of my friends. So but I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to support.
Not an addiction. I am totally in control of my hobby.
Well, hey, you're the one that I wasn't putting you under the bus. You just admitted that it was you. Just saying.
Oh yeah. I've got 1 or 2. I won't lie.
Yeah, right. Yes. And maybe later in the episode we can take a little tour of some sort, or in a future episode.
Save that for later on.
Yeah, we should build up to that. You're right. We gotta tease. We gotta throw a line out and kind of tease a little bit, and yeah.
Yeah.
So we've known each other for well over a decade now at this point, and I've always been kind of leery. This is gonna sound kind of elitist of me. I've always been leery of who I watch wrestling with. Because of how mature and progressed I've become as a viewer. I'm not a sucker or a mark, if you will. To a certain extent, we all are at some level. But if somebody's acting like a jerk, I'm not like, oh, I don't like that guy. Like, I'm like, oh, I get it. He's doing it. He's doing his thing. So I don't like associating. I don't want to say associate. I don't want to sit on a couch and watch wrestling with somebody that's like that if I'm already 10 steps ahead. And I felt closest to you on that as far as where we were in our progression of viewership and stuff.
And I consider myself king of the marks with all the money I've blown on crazy nonsense.
That's 100% acceptable. Yes.
If the objects to get you to spend money, they won.
Yeah.
I did it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But as far as what I watch, how I watch, yes, absolutely. I'm not, I did not believe, well, looking back, I do not believe the Repo Man was an actual Repo Man. So.
Fair. So, what was I going to say?
How did you become a wrestling fan?
Oh, man. So, that's a really good question. For me, I don't really have an answer because it was just always around. So, my dad played in a band and stuff whenever I was a kid. And so he would have like, it may have been bandmates or just regular buddies or, whatever. But every now and then they would come over to the house. And my first memory of wrestling was actually, so we had like a dining room set up that had this special refrigerator in, which, here we are almost, I'm scared to say, but almost 35 years later, Dad still has this fridge in his garage, but it's a fridge that is built to hold a keg. And it's got a tap on the outside of the door. And so his buddies would come over to the house because that was the watering hole kind of thing. And right on top of that refrigerator sat a TV, and they would always watch wrestling. And so that was my first memory. And I remember like Hulk Hogan. I remember my dad being a big fan of Big John Studd and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So, just kind of the burly, manly men. But me as a kid, Hulk Hogan, I was like, oh man, how awesome, just the showmanship and all that kind of stuff. And then I realized somehow either he got his dad to watch it or his dad got him to watch it. But I remember going to my grandparents for the weekend on many occasions, and my grandpa would be watching. And my favorite memory of all time of my grandpa for anything was watching wrestling. And you and I have talked off air, and we're going to try and keep this family friendly. But I can remember Ric Flair walking down the aisle, and my grandpa just cussing him, "You son of a so and so," and get your cheating butt back to the locker room, and all this. I mean, he was. You talk about a mark. My grandpa was an absolute mark, but it made me love it so much, and so that's where I 100% fell in love. And then as I get older and stuff, it progresses into backyard wrestling, and it just I've just always been around it. I've always been a fan. So, how about yourself?
Well, I've got to touch on a couple different.
Okay,
things
yeah, good.
So, you're not going to talk about who your dad looks like?
Okay, well, that is.
You have to talk about
Oh,
that.
that's fair. That's fair. So, and I'm kind of getting there. I don't have it long enough though. But yeah. So my dad is a school teacher as well, just like John is, and except for my dad's retired now. Yeah, all the kids in school. My dad was a junior high and high school teacher, and he taught shop. And so, by nature of being the shop teacher and being just not very like by the rules kind of guy, he's really laid back and just chill. He was my all the kids' favorite teacher. So they would always give him a hard time and stuff, and they'd always call him the Hulkster because my dad looks a lot like Hulk Hogan. So yeah, and it's really funny. The more that Hulk ages, the more he looks like my dad now too, because obviously he's not in ring shape, and my dad certainly has never been in ring shape. So yeah, they look a lot alike. It's really funny.
Yeah. Whenever you talk about your dad, I always picture Hulk Hogan like running around the house with like a little baby kid Jerry, and that always makes me laugh. Like it just.
Yeah, it's. I mean, what you've got in your head is probably pretty accurate to real life. What actually it looked like. Yeah. Yep, for sure.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, I don't know. Oh, right here. Yeah, you're probably not going to be able to see. I'll show the people at home first. There's that. Here's this for you. There's my dad and me when we were. I mean, I was less than a year old right there, learning how to play drums. And
he almost looks like Bruno in that picture.
right, and there's again. So this is in the '80s with dad having a beard before he went goatee, and yeah, it's kind of hard to tell there. But later, as years progressed, starting in like I'm gonna guess late '90s, mid '90s, is when like Hulk Hogan hit my dad, like hardcore. It was like, whoa, there's no denying it, brother.
Oh, brother. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but like off air, like us interviewing each other for the first show. So before I get to me, I've got a couple questions more than just.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Please do.
Do you have a first pay-per-view that you remembered?
Oh gosh, I don't. And here's why. First of all, it wasn't until I was in high school that I actually ordered a pay-per-view. And by ordered, I mean go to a friend's house and they order it through their parents, kind of thing. Just like you and I used to get together to watch Raw. I had a group of friends from high school that we get together. In fact, we were the guys that were all in the Backyard Wrestling Federation together. But before that, before I actually ordered them, I can remember being in middle school and checking out the the early days of the internet and getting results and stuff. And so that was also my introduction to dirt sheets and the behind the scenes at the next level kind of thing. Because I've always been that's where I've been a mark, is for the behind the scenes stuff. Obviously, I run a production company and stuff now. And so seeing how a lot of that kind of stuff happens behind the scenes. So anytime like there'd be two wrestlers fighting each other and they go up the ramp and through the stage and through Gorilla, I'm like, oh man, and hit pause on that. I want to see the list of who's going over and all that, just any little anything.
Yeah.
And so I always live for that. So I can't say that I remember a first pay-per-view of what I ordered myself, but I can remember one of the very first ones that stands out to me that I watched as a group of friends together at high school, and that was SummerSlam of 2001. with the big fall off the top of the Tron. That was
was that Shane and Test?
Shane Test. Yep.
Test.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm trying to think what else was.
Would that have been Shawn and Triple H?
I feel like it.
Was that
I feel like it might have been. I can't remember.
That might have been.
Thankfully, I've got a phone ring.
It's been a minute.
It has, yeah. But yeah, so but and that's what I really remember about that too is the climb up the Tron for the big spot in that, and I mean we're all just. I look over at my buddies and we're all literally on the edge of the couch, just like holy cow, we'd never seen anything like that yet at that point. So yeah.
I mean that's the thing with the Shane match. I mean, he's going to take a stupid bump. It's always going to be entertaining.
For sure, and that was really the beginnings of that. Like now we anticipate it and expect it. Back then it was like totally like out of left field. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So now then let's turn the tables. How about yourself? What was your introduction to wrestling?
One more. I gotta know.
Okay.
Backyard wrestling name.
Which one? So we had a core group of I think like 5 maybe 6 guys, and then we had kind of you'll like this outsiders, if you will, that were not in our completely tight circle of people, but in the circle right next to us. So all together on a great day, the best turnout as far as the roster that we had, it may have been 8 to 10 people. It was not very many. So and we very rarely did one-on-one matches. It was usually like, hey, I went on this match. Hey, me too. And so it was like everybody in horrible booking. But it was a lot of fun. Being 15, 16 years old and doing that kind of stuff. So a lot of us played multiple characters, but for the majority, we had our go-to. And my go-to was Johnny the Joker Kakachi. And so I had like, I'll say red and black face paint. And it wasn't like Sting. It was different. But I had like this red, black, and white jester hat. And then I would just wear like a plain black shirt with a cutoff. And I had somewhere I've still got these tights too. That my best friend Johnny, his mom had somehow, and they worked perfect for wrestling tights. But they were all black and had like this red swirl kind of thing around the legs, almost like a Jake the Snake Roberts kind of thing with the snakes. So it was really cool. And so I would do cartwheels and stuff and just all kinds of, whatever I thought a Joker or a jester and court jester might do. So, yeah.
Tremendous.
Yep. And then I, before a young man came around onto the scene, I also had and I was kind of a heel, by the way, as Johnny the Joker Kakachi. Kakachi is actually a name of a friend of ours that we went to school with, and her name was Nina. She was Italian, Nina Kakachi. Now I always like that name, Kakachi. I'm like Kakachi, and so I just incorporated it. And Johnny, of course, was my best friend's first name in real life, so I was like, okay, I'll kind of blend the two. So he was a heel, so I wanted to try and be a face as well. So I was like, I'm gonna be this corny, goofy, over the top. So I first of all, I liked hip hop decently enough back then, but it was not my thing. Like I was a metalhead. So I had like this fake jersey kind of thing. It had a zipper on it, and I would unzip it and take it off, and I had just a plain white shirt and jorts and sneakers. And I had short hair at the time, and I have long hair now. And I always wanted long hair, but I just never did when I was in school. And so I took a piece of yarn and tied it around my head like in a ribbon. And then from that, I took more yarn straight down all the way around. It was horrible. And so I would come out and I'd be dancing like this, and sunglasses on, the whole thing, and I'd take it off. So like Gold Dust would take his wig off, I would take mine off. And then lo and behold, not long after, because this would have been about 2000, summer of 99 into 2000. Fast forward a couple of years later, here comes John Cena, and I'm like, that's my shtick. What are you doing? Like, it was straight up. So, and my character was called Rap Master, not Master, Master.
And what was the name of this fed?
So this was Hardcore HCW was what it was. Hardcore Coalition Wrestling. Don't ask what it means.
You think Cena was watching this fed?
Oh, dude. Are you kidding? Our pay-per-view buy rates were through the roof.
Excellent.
Yeah, no. We did have a few people come and watch and stuff though. We set up we had some chairs and stuff. And full disclosure, I'm 37 years old now, so keep in mind this was 20 years ago. So in school, I took a videography class, like so VHS mix editing and mixing and stuff. And we would do school project, and I'm talking like this kind of camera, over your shoulder. And so we would have to go through the school and like do little projects and stuff. But the nice thing about being in that class, the perk was you can rent the cameras, which just meant you sign up on a piece of paper and you call it basically. So we would each do this because I had myself and one or two of my other friends that were in this class, and so we would end up with 2 or 3 cameras, and would have a 2 or 3 camera shoot and film pay-per-views and stuff. So yeah,
Tremendous.
yeah,
Excellent.
it was a lot of
The way
fun.
you described that yarn,
Uh-huh.
it sounded like, and I could be way off. I mean, get a picture of this and show me later.
Okay.
It sounded like budget Macho Man, like with stuff hanging down.
Yes, but even more budget than you can ever imagine. Think Raggedy Ann.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I mean,
oh.
I'm not saying yarn and meaning something else. I mean legitimately crocheting yarn. Like a black piece around here and then black down here. But at the end, I had to tie it in a knot so it would have enough weight on it so it didn't look stupid. Oh, it was awful. It was so awful. And what's funny is I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to stuff, especially in that era, because that was like, highlights of my life kind of thing. Somehow that got lost.
Oh,
And I'm not mad that it did.
I am.
Maybe I'll recreate the look sometime.
Yes, yes.
Rap Master 30 years later.
Ooh. Hey, Cena's in Hollywood. You could, I mean.
There you go. Yep. There you
Good
go.
deal.
So yeah, that's kind of my my backstory for wrestling. I'm sure we'll find other things along the way.
Yeah.
As we've all got, just treasure troves of information and stories and fun stuff over the years. But yeah, okay. So now then, let's turn the tables. How were you introduced, and when were you introduced to wrestling?
So let me be very clear. My parents hate pro wrestling to this day.
Okay,
Okay.
so they always have. They hated it then. They hate it now.
Always have. I never had a Hasbro action figure growing up. Never had an LJN. Later in life.
Okay.
My first introduction was my neighbor across the street. 2 brothers. They invited me over for, I believe, it was WrestleMania 9.
Okay.
It was WrestleMania 9, right in that time period. So I know I saw WrestleMania 9 over there, but it might have been the Royal Rumble before or the Royal Rumble after. So it's in that, like, 93-ish era.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And I remember seeing, like, I remember watching the first Raw, which was mind-boggling. So I had some exposure. But yeah, it was seeing Bret Hart. Bret Hart, something about him just captivated me, and I was just like exactly what he was like pushing on TV, like a role model, be a good person, and that's like I just latched onto it. I'm like, this guy's awesome.
Right.
I was cheered for Bret. I loved Owen, the Bulldog, and yeah, it hooked me hard when the 1-2-3 Kid or the Kid beat Razor. Like my head exploded. My little mind. Like,
oh my gosh!
He's not supposed to win. He just won. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I just got hooked on it from there. And yeah, so it was my neighbors got me hooked on it, and then it was always a huge hassle. But to my parents' credit, even though they hated wrestling, they knew I was like a freak about it.
Yeah.
So we'd go to Blockbuster Video and rent those Coliseum home movies. So, yeah, I wore those out at the Blockbuster, just renting them again and again. And
Same.
The guy had to hate me there because I'm just like, hey, are you getting new wrestling movies? Like,
oh, really?
Every week I was asking him.
Oh,
like,
wow. Nice.
And keep in mind, this Blockbuster had stock from 2, 3, 4 years ago.
Gotcha.
They weren't getting the new ones every month.
Same for me.
So,
yeah, when I was in high school, my buddy Johnny is the one that introduced me to, hey, go to the, in our case, it was a grocery store, and we had a movie store. We lived in an itty bitty small town, so we sure didn't have a Blockbuster, but we did have a video store. So both the grocery store and so we would bounce back and forth on who had what, and we would I would rent one, he would rent one, we'd trade it, and then we'd like return it back at the opposite place that we got it from. So yeah, and it's amazing too. As an adult, I never realized how expensive those were for the video stores to buy. Do you have any knowledge of this kind of stuff? Like 70, 70 to over $100 a piece for those Coliseum videos is what if you wanted to buy a Coliseum home video. Yeah. I was like, holy cow, man. I never knew that. And we think of it now like I wouldn't pay, like we gripe about paying more than $9.99 for a pay-per-view.
$9.99. What's that?
Yeah, I don't know. Where have I heard that? But yeah, no, it's crazy. Yep.
That's nuts. I did not know that.
And did you more trivia? Did you know that when Tony Schiavone for the 1 year he was in WWF, that's what he was in charge of was Coliseum home video. He put together all the videos and stuff for that. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Good to know. Yeah. Did you get that for this podcast?
Maybe. I shall not reveal my sources.
Nice. So for me, it was all those Coliseum videos, my neighbor Bret Hart, and then junior high hits, and that's where like kids are really getting into wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But I was chasing the girls and kind of fell off of wrestling, and then came back to it. And when I came back, it would have been like early 2000.
Okay.
So, like, I always followed it, but there's like a few years in that late 90s where I wasn't like as diehard as I probably should have been. I was diehard WCW or NWO in the late 90s.
Okay, and I was gonna get to that later. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I grew up watching it all, and then since I don't know, probably 2000, the last 20 years, it's been deep.
Yeah.
Deep into it.
Yeah.
And,
I think most wrestling fans have kind of a fall off period. And sometimes it's they, just get disenfranchised with it, and sometimes it's just life happens and whatever, and then they come back to it. So.
Yeah, and like there was a time where it was like I hated missing.
Yeah.
And now it's like okay, if I miss a Raw, it's not the end of the world. DVR, fast forward.
Internet.
And with a 3-hour show, they're going to catch you up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting too, because really, when you think about it, and I know 3 hours for Raw is a long time, and they do cram a lot of stuff in. But you go back to my childhood in the 80s and 90s, they had multiple TV shows on through the week. So like I could watch Saturday Morning Live Wire and get caught up on what happened on Raw. And keep in mind too, it was only one show and a pay-per-view. It wasn't like they had Raw and SmackDown and all the other things that come over the years. But yeah, and then you had Sunday Morning Super or Saturday whatever day Superstars came on. But yeah, it was surprisingly easy to get caught up even back then if you missed. Which you would think that in a time where internet wasn't available or as prevalent as it is, it was surprisingly easy. But yeah, now they seem to they bottleneck all that information and just shove it down your throat. So yeah,
for sure.
Did you ever? We'll get into the figures here shortly. So did you ever get into backyard wrestling or anything? Did you ever get I don't know. Did you get physical with it yourself? I mean, even on couch cushions or on your bed or, anything like that?
I mean, so like growing up, you always do like the goof around wrestling.
Sure.
But yeah, backyard in high school, absolutely.
Really?
Frontier backyard wrestling.
Nice. So
FPW.
So did everybody wear chaps and cowboy hats or what was on the Frontier?
The trampoline.
Oh, so it was okay. So you guys did trampoline wrestling.
Yeah, so
nice.
we did on the trampoline, and then we segued at times to like really like using like wood pallets and then covering the top of the pallets with foam, and then we just kind of imagined that ropes were there. It wasn't good. We weren't good. But some of the neighbors would come out and watch us, and some of the neighbors would come out and yell at us. One of the things we did, we taped one of our championships to telephone wires and had to pull on those to get it down. Probably not the smartest idea. one of the spots we did, we positioned the ring like where we built it that day.
Uh-huh.
We built it next to the shed. So obviously it's like, well, we got to do a spot where we fall off the shed.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just stupid teenage stuff.
For
but-
sure. Yeah. No, there's so and there it's I as soon as you started talking, I'm like, man, there's a lot of meat on the bone on that subject alone. So I think we ought to save that and do a backyard wrestling episode and really dive deep into the inner workings of how it got started, who did the booking, what was your setup, that kind of stuff. I think that'll be a good episode to do in the future. So I won't ask too much because I think we should save that for that. But man, how exciting to hear that you did it too. I don't honestly, as long as I've known you, I don't think I knew. If I did know, I don't remember, and I never knew the detail and stuff. Like how it came together for you guys and stuff.
In all our shows, this was what I remembered. This is what I remember the best was we'd record all the shows, and it would take us 5 hours to do all the wrestling and all the setup and actually have the show.
Yep.
Then as soon as we get done, let's go watch it.
Oh yeah. Yep. For sure.
We got to watch it back. Come on. And
yep.
Watching it back, we're like, wow, we are terrible.
Yeah. So I can remember we would I would go and spend the weekend basically at my friend Johnny's house, and then our other friends would convene there at his house, which is where we had our setup. But we would wrestle Saturday, and then as soon as we're done wrestling, we would watch it. We'd sleep. But then Sunday night for the pay-per-view, then we'd all stay and watch that too. So, yeah, we made a whole weekend of it for us.
Oh, you have to.
Yeah,
great.
Absolutely. You got to get some influence for your next spot, brother. So, you kind of mentioned you touched on this. When you were a fan of wrestling back in the day, were you a loyalist to either WWF or WCW, or were you kind of a channel changer and changed that way, or none of the above? How did that work for you?
So during the Monday Night Wars,
yeah,
I was pretty loyal to WCW.
Okay.
And I would flip between commercials, but I mean, every once in a while, WWE would hook me with something
right.
and stay on that. Like, okay, but there's something cool going on. I'll watch that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, NWO, Wolfpack, all the way.
Interesting. All right. Well, how does it feel to be on the losing side of that, by the way?
Too soon, brother. Too soon.
Oh, man. No.
But no, like, think about it. Like, I was a kid, and Bret Hart was my guy. I loved Razor. I loved Diesel.
So by the time you started watching wrestling again, they had already jumped over.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So once I kind of got back into it, everybody I liked was in WCW. So I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going.
And it's not just even everybody you like; it's literally all the top guys. So yeah, no, I definitely understand that for sure. So did you watch WCW before that? Before you stopped watching for your little span of time that you didn't watch, or did you watch WWF before that?
So as a kid, probably 9 to, I don't know, 9 to 13 maybe. It was all WWF, and then I jumped ship to WCW all the way. But in that first phase I was watching, I hated WCW. Watching it, the Saturday main event, I was like, "Oh, this is for the old people. I don't want to watch this."
Yeah, for sure. And wheelchair wrestling is what we used to call it.
Yeah. Yep. And then once Scott Hall showed up, I was like, "Oh, this is cool now."
Gotcha. Yep. Yeah. So for me, I was an absolute WWF loyalist. I don't remember as a kid what we watched. I do feel like it was probably a mix of WWF and NWA. Just based on some of the names that I grew up being familiar with. And I'm like, well, they weren't in WWF at that time. So, that kind of thing, especially like my story I said about my grandpa, cussing Ric Flair as he came down, and maybe grandpa had WCW on at the time. And I didn't know that there was even a difference. I just thought wrestling was wrestling. But, so for me, I was 100% loyal to WWF, and especially into my, like middle school and junior high school kind of years. In fact, so you mentioned too, and this jogged me my memory. You mentioned that your parents never liked wrestling and still don't like wrestling. My dad loved it and totally nurtured my passion for it. My mom, however, was like the whole Santa Claus thing, like, oh come on now, and I'm like, I just remember her killing kayfabe for me, and oh the crushing blow. But so mom always got disgusted with it, and my mom, and maybe a lot of parents are like this, or a lot of moms, but she would always perfectly time coming into the room when something was happening that I knew, okay, well, God, if mom saw me watch this, like when Jacqueline had a wardrobe slip or something, and here walks my mom, and I'm like, great. So turn this smut off, is what she would always call it, smut, or it's garbage. So like I won't say that I wasn't allowed to watch it, but it was really, really frowned upon. Plus, I was in school, I was very hard to wake up in the mornings. So I had a very early bedtime. My bedtime was actually at 8:30 all the way up until my sophomore year when I moved out of my mom's to my dad's. 8:30. And so Raw came on at 8. So I had a 30-minute window. But even then I was like, I had to brush my teeth and make sure all my stuff was done. So long story short, I used to, back in my day, we had the great big, the big satellite dishes outside that are like ginormous huge. So we would get USA Network on at 8 o'clock and watch Raw, but then it would re-air. I could go to the West feed, and it would re-air at 11. And but I couldn't stay up because I had to get up for school the next morning. So I became a pro's pro at going into the front room when everybody was out of the room and lights were shut off and stuff. This is 11 o'clock at night, so now everybody's asleep. But if I am heard out out and about in the front room or whatever, it'll all come raining down on me. But I used to take a piece of black electric tape over the record button that was bright red in a pitch black room and record it on VHS and then watch it the next day, because I had like a half an hour, 45-minute window every day before my parents got home from work. And so I would like hurry up and watch all the episodes that way. So yeah, so I it took a lot of work, but I was a loyalist through and through. I was like, I've got to get my wrestling fix.
There is still in my parents' basement 2 rather large boxes loaded with blank VHS tapes that I would use to record Nitros and Raws on.
Really?
And my mom's like, "What do you want me to do with this?" I'm like, "Just throw them away." And she's like, "Should I take them somewhere and sell them?" I'm like, "Throw them away." It's
right.
It's not like something like the companies were selling. It's just me being crazy, like recording every week, trying to get like, oh, I'm building my film library. It's like, no.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And now wrestling fans, they don't know how good they have it.
Oh, dude, tell me about it. Yeah, everything in a click of a button. I mean, whether it's on the network or whether it's on YouTube or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they don't understand the tape trading. There was like an underground movement for all that kind of stuff. You had to know somebody that knew somebody to get to, anything from Japan or anything. It's just, man, yeah.
I have friends that watch wrestling now through, I'm going to say it wrong. GIF?
A GIF? Uh-huh.
A GIF? Yeah. Through GIFs on Twitter, and that, like, they follow wrestling, they know what's going on.
Yep.
They don't watch the shows, they just watch the GIFs.
Can you imagine, talk about a weird piece of booking, can you imagine if GIFs were a thing back in the 80s, and you're watching a GIF of somebody with a sleeper hold? Nobody would watch wrestling then. They'd be like, yeah, I'm good. But if it's a flippy do and a
Superfly, and but
that'd be about the highlight reel. That'd be about it.
The leg drop,
brother. Yeah, no, it's you bring up a good point. That is the way that the business is nowadays. It's easy to kind of charm a new person into watching because it's very flashy and over the top. Whereas when we were kids, we had to wait. I had, especially, in the 80s, I had to wait through, 20 minutes of holds to get through a 22-minute match for 2 minutes of moves. And the moves weren't anything spectacular or anything, a power bomb. And we're like, oh, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
I mean, they were big dudes back then.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That's why I get so upset, too, with that's not how you book a monster, because I grew up with the old school way of doing things. So, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's really cool to hear how you got introduced to wrestling and stuff. For me, I can't say that I followed it weekly for a long time up until I was at probably junior high-ish, somewhere in there. And then it was like I was a weekly watcher kind of thing. And I never did the commercial break, flip over to WCW. I didn't care like what they were doing. Um, and I got like a quick little, here's what's going on in WCW by going to school the next day. And as they say, the water cooler talk, and which happened in my case on the school bus. Because I had a friend that
What
was,
about that?
huh?
I was gonna say, what about that first hour of Nitro where they were running on a post?
Didn't even know it did it. During the time I never even knew it did. I know, right? Yeah. But brother, when I say loyalist, I mean like down the wire, like wheelchair wrestling, and yeah, this is where all the old has-beens are. You guys like Hulk Hogan? I liked him 10 years ago, and oh yeah, big time. Yeah. Um, and for me, it was which, and this is funny now because I'm easy to invest or to get behind, I should say, a wrestler or a promotion or that kind of thing. I didn't know who Diamond Dallas Page was. I didn't care to get to know him because it was somebody new. Which ironically, if somebody debuted in WWF, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll accept it. But for me, so I
He,
went
he
from being
did eventually.
right, yeah, for sure. So I went from being like a Hulk Hogan, big fan of Hulk Hogan, and kind of LOD, that kind of thing. And then it went into Sean. And so like I'm talking 93, 94, that, um, good Sean, great Sean, 96. And then then it evolves into, Steve and The Rock and that kind of stuff. And it really wasn't until kind of the end of WCW that I was like, had a good knowledge of back and forth what's going on in both companies kind of thing. So
Currently, what are you watching? Anything?
so I don't really watch WWE anymore. This is, and I can't tell you, a part of my soul has died. Being a loyalist for literally over 30 years, and it's just like, man, I've had enough. I just think things are just being done poorly over there, and I mean, and we could talk about that and episodes in the future, but I'm just not. I feel like it's lost its magic, and for a while, to be honest, I was scared that wrestling had lost its magic, and maybe a part of it has. But so now I'm an AEW loyalist, if you will. Um, but and again, maybe it's because some of the magic has come off. Getting smart to the business and stuff. But I see holes in that too, even. But I enjoy the product. I enjoy, first and foremost. Let it be known that I enjoy the work of any wrestler for the most part, and appreciate what they do. Whenever I say that I don't like something, it's usually things that aren't even in their control. So the booking and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Other companies at all?
not really. So I for a minute, and I mean a hot minute, tried to keep up with NWA with the new Billy Corgan gimmick, and see, now I use wrestling lingo in my everyday life. By the way, so so yeah, so I did try to watch Power a little bit, but I didn't end up. I think Scott Steiner coming down was the last one I saw, and that's been months ago. But no, so basically AEW has really been about it. And I'll watch. So I still do watch the big pay-per-views for WWE. And I'll from time to time kind of check in, whether it's on the internet or just flipping over to the show for a minute. But yeah, more and more it's just AEW or kind of nothing. Or I'll watch old stuff on the network. I am still a network subscriber. I'm actually a day one subscriber. So
Oh wow.
yeah, and have never canceled since.
I could not say that.
Yep, November of 2014, brother. I believe.
Ooh,
I think that's right.
they're taking your money every month.
Oh yeah. And you have no idea how glad I'm. Every time they talk about doing a tier system, I'm like, oh God, no. And they still have it. And I'm like, yes. So yeah.
For me, I'm kind of similar to you, where I'm watching the big WWE shows,
Uh-huh.
like to keep up, and Raw, SmackDown. If they advertise something cool, yeah, I mean, if it's something that piques my interest, I will absolutely tune in and watch that. NXT last week. Not to date this first episode, but it was the Tuesday deal where they had the four-way Iron Man, and yeah, I was all about that. till the finish, and it was fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
But they dragged it out another week, and I was like, okay. So NXT, I'll watch when I can if I have time. I'm AEW all the way. Ring of Honor. I was diehard Ring of Honor. Probably. I can't even get into it. Maybe 08 to 15.
The golden years of ROH is when you were a fan. Yeah. Which was amazing.
I mean, even then, you could argue like their golden years were I just missed, but like I went back and watched all of 05, 06, 07.
True.
So I mean, I was big into ROH for a long time. Impact, since Slammiversary, I'm trying to watch more Impact because they had that influx of new talent.
Yeah.
With Gallows, Anderson, Heath, Myers, EC3 coming back, Eric Young,
yep.
Deanna, with everybody going there, it's like, okay, they've got fresh blood. Everybody who's there, they're starting to bust their butts even more. Competition does that, and it's Impact's becoming a fun show to watch.
Well, I'm glad, and I would be open to getting into Impact. I want to ask you a question, and I want to keep it separate. What are your opinions of the work in the ring, and what are your opinions of the work outside of the ring, meaning the booking and the storytelling and that kind of stuff of TNA? Currently,
I've only watched it a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm into it. So like the work in the ring's been great. I mean, like Eddie Edwards, like my dude. I love that guy.
You've loved him for years. Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
And Deanna Purrazzo and was there Jordan Grace? They just had a killer match. Everything is looking good there. There's lots of potential, lots of fresh matchups going on there. So I mean, it's good to watch. The booking, I feel like you can't judge it after only seeing a couple weeks.
Right.
Let them build to a pay-per-view, see how things pay out. But yeah, I mean, I'm digging it so far.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
So yeah, Impact, like giving it a try, giving it an honest try. But Dynamite's my show.
Yep, for sure.
That's it. BTE every week. Love it. And New Japan, you didn't mention. Do you do anything in there?
No, I did for a while in either 18 or 19. I can't remember. But yeah. So like when Chris was going over and that kind of stuff, Chris Jericho, as a Painmaker and that kind of stuff in that era of things. Yeah. And also whenever Jim Ross was doing commentary with Don Callis on Access, I was watching some of that. So
I missed the whole Access thing because I think it was airing a little wonky, like super late.
Yes, it was, and so the same. I didn't actually watch Access, but I watched stuff on YouTube and that kind of stuff, and got caught up. Plus, and well, I'll let me write this down because my mind is going like nuts with ideas on things. So, so yeah, I kept up with it. I didn't like watch necessarily weekly or episodically, I guess is the best way to put that. But I kept up with it enough to know kind of who's who, what's going on, who's got belts, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, and for me, like it's Wrestle Kingdom. Like, I'll pay out for Wrestle Kingdom or find a way to watch that.
Yes.
I don't watch it live because it's like, when is it our time?
Oh, it's like 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning. It's way ridiculous.
So I go internet blind for a day and
Same.
Watch it the next night.
Same.
So.
Which again, not to date ourselves, and maybe we can talk about this if you want, either in the episode or we can can it for after the show. But I just had to do that this past weekend for All Out for AEW. I had shows and stuff that I was doing, and so I wasn't able to watch. I think it's cool that AEW is doing it on a different day, being a Saturday, but in a production company where we do bands and stuff that play on Fridays and Saturdays, it kills it for pay-per-views. So I have to do the same thing, like internet blind. Like I literally go through my phone and shut off notifications for YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, and try to stay off my phone. So yeah, that was successful this time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you say a different day. For me, it's like, oh, it's just like UFC. And with UFC, I was following it really hard for a while. Now it's just kind of like, oh, they've got a big show. If there's names I want to see, I'll turn it. tune in and watch that.
Right. Yeah. Yep, for sure. And that is what's cool is, as much as I wasn't a WWF or WWE loyalist, and I kind of am with AEW, I'm really happy with how things have panned out. That I'm more of a per person loyalist. So like, for example, Pac, I'll watch him wherever he goes, or I've got my people, and like if so and so went to TNA, I would probably watch TNA to watch their segments and stuff. And so I like how I've kind of grown in that aspect as well.
And that's kind of what Impact did to hook me. It's like a lot of people I really like went to Impact, and I'm just so happy. Like, oh, they're gonna get a chance to do something and be used every week.
Right.
So that excites me.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And before but I like that we're progressing forward in kind of our journey. I do want to take a step back. I mentioned like kind of who my guys were as a kid. Who were your guys? Was it just Brett? Was it like Brett's your guy, like your number one, this is my dude? Or what did you have a progression? Was it Brett and then it was like, he turned heel and I don't like him and now this is my guy? How did that work for you?
Oh, you are going to yeah. No, Brett's heel turn did not phase me. Like I was like, he's right. Canada is the way to go.
I'm not a fan of America either. I live in St. Louis.
Like, everything this man is saying is true. All these people are wrong.
Which is what made him a great heel. I mean, if we're being honest. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, Bret Hart was one of my favorites. I loved 1-2-3 Kid, Diesel, like all that.
Right.
Mr. Perfect was another.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, here's a really bad one that I loved. Kona Crush.
Really?
I loved Hawaiian Crush as a kid.
Oh wow. When boy.
He took his arm off and started swinging. I was so upset. That evil monster clown. I couldn't believe he would do that.
Oh my gosh.
Crush was just like such a good dude, and
right. Oh, dude, you made my day with that. I can't even believe that. My cheeks already hurt from laughing on that.
No, I was so little kid, black and white, where these are the good guys. That's who you cheer for. I loved Owen Hart, obviously, like when he was like high energy.
Right.
Coco Beware, like, yeah, all the baby faces, absolutely. The Steiner brothers, loved them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like Tatanka was another, like, yeah, all those guys who, when you look back at the 80s golden age of wrestling, and then there's like that lull in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was that lull in the 90s that got hooked.
Oh, really? Wow. Interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, all those dudes I loved, and then yeah, modern day, it's kind of gone the opposite, where I tend to like all the heels as an adult.
Right. Yeah. Same. And I've been a heel guy for years. But as a kid, I was not. I was the biggest mark. Yeah.
And I'll say this now, but I think it's going to get a whole episode down the line in 6 months.
Okay.
Hangman Page. Strap a rocket to that guy.
Dude.
He is
man.
the man.
Yeah.
I feel like he is going to reach Stone Cold levels, and I'm cheering for this babyface. He's the best.
So first of all, I've got goosebumps that you even compared him to Stone Cold. Here's why. So currently, like you said, we're gonna end up kind of dating the show as far as when we're recording and stuff, and I don't really care. And I'm not gonna be that specific. But so right now he's got this whole they're teasing like him being an alcoholic thing and him drinking beer and stuff. So there's that tie-in with Steve.
Well, hold on. Do you remember why? What caused him to go to alcoholism?
Fill me in.
He didn't beat Jericho for the title?
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So my point to this is before that happened, I thought the exact same thing. I literally told Anthony, I said, I see Stone Cold here. Like, this is like ECW, like right on the verge of figuring out who and what he is, shoot him to the moon kind of thing. And I was like, no, I mean literally like Stone Cold. Like I can foresee him getting these big pops when his music hits and stuff, just like next level over that we haven't seen in a long time. So for me, it was so ironic when they started doing the beer thing and he's wearing a vest. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. Like I didn't call all of that, but but yeah, I do
No,
too.
he
I see
is.
him being as over as they get, man.
Once live crowds start happening again, and yeah, it's go. I think he's going to be the number one guy 2021.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, he's awesome.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree for sure. Um, you
But as far as uh, mostly liking heels,
uh-huh.
I still like the baby faces.
Do you?
Hangman is the dude. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate that about you. That I think it's just even in being a heel, it's now a thing. Now it's a thing to like the bad guys, or to if you're a heel, you try to be cool. I guess is what I'm really trying to say. So that you don't have to be that way as a fan necessarily. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, no. So another thing too that you mentioned that for whatever reason that didn't enter my mind. The last stuff that I watched in WWE, like the last year or two, because I haven't watched main roster stuff in probably 3 years. As far as like, oh, every Monday. It's probably been every bit of 3 years. But we switched over and started watching it in NXT and like totally got sucked in. And we had been watching it for, I mean, we've together been watching it probably the last 6+ years. So like when Charlotte and Sasha and Bailey, all those are first starting in NXT, and then their move up to the main roster and stuff. We stayed with NXT until just like I said, like the last year probably, and then switched over to AEW, and it was perfect timing too. I was kind of getting disenfranchised with them getting call ups and then getting not used properly. And then right at the same time where I'm starting to, the wheels in my head turning are like, maybe I'm done with this. And then AEW comes along, I'm like, nope, we're good. So yeah. Um, let's see here. So um, part of our conversation earlier when I gave you the tidbit about Tony Schiavone, I do you listen to any wrestling podcasts or anything, or what other stuff you mentioned? So you mentioned BTE. What other besides actual wrestling programming do you watch or
Yeah.
listen to?
Well, DTE. I mean, it's great. Watch it if you don't. Uh, but podcast for me, just like you said, wrestling podcasts are what introduced me to podcasts.
Yeah.
So most of my podcast listening is wrestling related. You have to go to the Podfather, Cabana. I started listening to Cabana's podcast, and I would kind of pick and choose which ones I would listen to. I don't know. Over the course of his 9-year run, where now he's still continuing it,
Yeah.
I didn't listen to all of them, but a good chunk of them.
Okay.
Where it's somebody I like or somebody I'd like to know more about. Let's give it a listen.
Gotcha.
So Cabana is definitely one. We talked about me being a toy guy. The Major Wrestling Figure podcast, Myers and Cardona and Smart Mark. That's one I listen to every week.
Right.
It's fantastic. AEW Unrestricted.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
a nice look. And they've been very transparent with everything, having Tony Khan on, I don't know, 2 or 3 times now, and letting him talk. It's really
Oh
interesting
wow.
to hear his stories.
Yeah. Yeah, because Tony grew up as a hardcore wrestling fan as well. He was as much of a fan to WCW as I was to WWE or F at the time. And so, yeah, I think it's really cool to hear not only his stories, but to see his journey, but to see his journey play out on national TV now, where you can see, okay, when he talks about he liked this or the way that they did this finish, and then he fast forward and 6 months later after he's had that conversation, here's that finish. It's stuff like that that's really cool. Whereas Vince is very protected. You don't hear interviews like that from Vince, so it's cool to hear somebody on the front lines that's running a company be vocal.
So for sure. So what did I say? Cabana with the Art of Wrestling, the Major Wrestling Figures, AEW Unrestricted. I also listen to Talking Shop. That's the Big LG.
Yep.
Gallows and Anderson. That's a fantastic one. Chris Van Vliet.
Uh-huh.
We've
He's
touched on
got
his
great
already.
interviews. He's a great interviewer. I'm really glad too that AEW used him for a little bit too.
Yeah,
Hopefully more in the future on that. But yeah,
yeah, he's fantastic. Uh, those are just a couple. The Jimmy Jacobs doesn't know. Obviously, I'm a huge Jimmy Jacobs fan,
oh yeah,
and so I listened to his. It only lasted a couple months, but that was a really interesting like life podcast that like intermingled wrestling with it sometimes.
uh-huh,
But yeah, it was cool.
very cool.
I wish you'd do more.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So do you think you tend to be more of a audio only listener? So like go to iTunes or whatever and listen that way, or are you a YouTube watcher and somebody like us that has video content? What's kind of more
It's
your go-to?
it depends. I like to go to the park and walk,
Okay,
so that makes audio perfect for me. So
long
uh,
walks along the park, huh?
yeah, so today was 4.8 miles,
Dang,
and
man. Wow.
I
Good.
got through 2 podcasts during that time.
Wow.
So like the hour long ones are nice. If there's a 2 hour one, it's usually okay. I can get that done, and the walk and probably the car ride home, still listening to it and finish it when I get
Nice.
home.
Nice.
But summer school this past year, I was teaching virtually from home,
Man, what a change
and
that's been too. Yeah.
oh brother, it's a different.
Yeah.
But summer school is like even different from what I was doing or what I'm doing now.
Uh-huh.
For summer school, it was mostly just touching base with parents, making contact. So I'd play Chris Van Vliet in the background, and with Black Wednesday and all those guys getting released, he kept having new people on the pod every week. So I was like, oh, this is great. I'll watch this one today.
Right.
Just kept going. So I do a mix of both the audio and the video content.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's great. For me,
Yeah, you've got a bunch, don't you?
oh man, the list is long, my friend. The list is long. So yeah, at my old job, I I won't say I worked at a factory because I certainly did not. I worked in a mail department, but it was very much factory work where it was just this, earbuds and you do your job and you don't even really have to think about much. So I would literally spend 8 hours a day at work listening to podcasts. Um, and just like, I mentioned that there's a lot of wrestlers that I've invested hardly in and I'll follow them wherever they go. Or if they're in this company and they do a one off over here, I'll go watch the one off kind of thing. With podcast, I'm loyal to people, but at a certain point, sometimes I'm like, I kind of got a good feel for you, and maybe I don't like you as much as I thought I did, or I just don't like you on a microphone as much as I thought I did. And so there's a lot of fall off for me on some of these, but I'll pull it up here and read you just, I'll go through a quick list of what is still on my phone as far as shows that I watch or listen to. Um, so and there's some too that I will skip because they're just unknown people like you and I to we don't have any name identity to anybody. The only exception to that I will name is not Sam. And which I'd listened to him for several years, way before he started actually working with WWE. So it was kind of cool, just as a fellow nerd and that kind of thing, and his background in radio, he was a good fit for it. But so real quick,
Sam is known in the wrestling figure community as the guy with nine finger Ludwig Borga. So
oh really?
yeah, he gets judged for his wrestling figure collection.
Oh really? Wow. So
It's
so
like he's got the stuff he had from when he was a kid. I don't know him,
but you're a
he had a
fan.
little feud. He had a little feud with the major guys, and that was really great fun.
Nice, nice, very cool. So I'll skip around and save let's see here. Save some of the good stuff. So I was a first of all I listened to the Ric Flair show. Um and well maybe I should say that one too. Anyway, so Steve Austin was my first, and that came from watching YouTube clips. Other people would randomly upload little bits. And in fact, when he had John Cena on as a guest, there was a little clip of that where John was talking about his car collection and stuff, like not talking wrestling at all. And I was like, oh, I like that. Two wrestlers at the highest level talking about stuff that has nothing to do with wrestling. And so that got me hooked. enough to actually go on the phone and get the actual audio only podcast. And that was really, the jumping off into the deep end. And I haven't looked back since. So Steve, and then I went into Jericho, and after that, I don't remember what order things went in. But yeah, so the Ric Flair show, Jerry Lawler had a podcast, Jim Ross had a podcast, the Raven Effect with Raven, Xbox had a couple podcasts, Edge and Christian have had a podcast. But then, so in watching the Ric Flair show, is when I got introduced to Conrad Thompson, and then I grew to like him as well as getting to listen to Ric Flair. And then Rick was like, "I'm kind of over this podcasting thing," and so then fast forward, Conrad meets up with Bruce Pritchard, and they have something to wrestle with. And I am like absolutely in love because just like I said earlier, how I was like, "Give me anything backstage," and I was like, oh my god, we just hit the jackpot. Like all these creative stories and decisions of booking and all this kind of stuff. So I was 100% in. And in fact, I think I got in around episode 16, and quickly caught up to where I was at by the time the next week came. And they were doing 1 to 2 hour shows every time at that point. Now they're doing well, at their height anyway, they would do up to like a 3.5 hour show, and I would just nonstop, like never even hit pause. I would just listen to it nonstop. So then once I got invested in Conrad, not just Bruce and Conrad, but Conrad, he started picking up other people. So he then included, he wanted like, if Bruce Pritchard is my WWF/WWE guy for creative, I need somebody to represent WW or WCW. So then he gets Tony Schiavone, and which I thought was kind of weird because I'm like, well, Tony wasn't anything to do with creative. He was a commentator. And thankfully, Conrad, being, kind of the pro that he is, realized, hey, wait a minute, I can't do the same formula with this. So they ended up changing to like a watch along style, which for audio only, it's okay, but the full experience you need to be able to see and hear. So that was cool, and I do still listen to that. So then he went over and got Eric Bischoff, which is who he should have got if you wanted to kind of match tit for tat on that. And so Eric was great. He's one that has fallen off just because he can never remember anything. I feel like he's a politician. So I still get the episodes. I just don't listen to them. And then he got Arn Anderson. And then he also rebranded and took over Jim Ross's show. And so a lot of that kind of stuff. So I'm a big fan of Conrad and all the podcasts that he has, and that's really my go-to. But yeah, I've listened to many over the years, and like I said, there's some that I don't even have anymore because I don't even get them on my phone. But yeah, there's been a lot that I listen to, but it's all to get more insight on the past, not even current kind of stuff. So
yeah, and you came up to St. Louis. I want to say it was Money in the Bank was in town.
Yep.
For pay-per-view in St. Louis, and Something to Wrestle With brought the podcast down.
Mm-hmm.
And Jared was nice enough to, hey, we're going to this. We got to meet Bruce Pritchard. We got to meet Conrad.
And you're like, Conrad who?
Yeah, so that was my first experience with Something to Wrestle, and like I did the WWE Network one, and that was, it was nice.
It was okay. I wish it was better than what it was with all that they had to work with, in WWE. I'm like, man, why wasn't that what we see Stone Cold Steve Austin's podcast as? That should have been that, But yeah.
So that was my first experience with Conrad. I ran into him for just a second at All In weekend. Conrad put on StarCast.
Uh-huh.
And I ran into him at StarCast. And I was like, Conrad, you gonna do another one of these? And he's, oh no! he had a rough weekend.
Oh yeah.
But it was a great show. I had an awesome time. And then I don't know if I told you this. I ended up going to the Conrad and Eric Bischoff one that was in St. Louis.
Oh really?
So
oh wow. How was that? Did Eric remember anything, or did he BS his way through everything? And he's also famous for getting very off subject and into the weeds.
It was an entertaining night.
Well, hey, then that's worth the price of admission, I guess.
yeah, it was cool. But yeah, it was. I know exactly what you mean about the off-topic craziness. It was sure a lot of fun.
I can imagine Conrad feels like he's herding cats whenever he has a podcast with Eric.
Yeah. And you mentioned another one, like one of my favorite wrestlers ever, Chris Jericho. I didn't mention his podcast.
Yeah.
I do listen, but he puts out so much content. It's hard to keep up with. So with
It
his,
is.
I kind of pick and choose. If
And,
it's someone, I want to hear their story, I'll listen to that.
and admittedly, I'm the same. He does put out a lot of stuff, meaning not only just like, every Wednesday, every Friday, but like he'll do rock and roll over here. He'll do wrestling. He'll do an interview. He'll do paranormal. He'll do, all this stuff. And so I kind of pick and choose that. Like I'm not into paranormal at all. I could care less. So anytime that comes up, I never even listen.
Yeah.
Any kind of wrestler, I do. Any kind of rocker, it depends on who it is. I'll give or take. And then if it's like a BS session, like when he had Luke Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson on for talking shop and stuff, which by the way, on my other podcast, the Audio Roast podcast, every like 6 to 8 weeks, I will have no guest on the show, and it'll just be me and the people that watch, and I call that talking shop. And that's exactly I 100% ripped it off. So yeah.
Little nod.
Yep.
Link.
Yep. So yeah, it's been a fun journey to listen to podcasts and stuff because before that, and you actually were the one that got me into shoot interviews. And I was like absolutely a kid in a candy store when I first realized, oh wait a minute, you mean like disgruntled people come and talk crap about people and companies and what really happened and that. Oh man, I ate it up, absolutely ate it up.
Yeah,
So.
the shoot DVD era, I think it's kind of gone by the wayside now because of all the podcasts.
Yes, I agree. Yep.
But yeah, that was a definite market at one point. I ate them up. I was going crazy buying those.
Oh man, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was a hot market, brother. So, yeah. I'm trying to think of I don't think there's anything else that I can think of as far as getting to know us.
Well, do we want to play our little game?
Oh, that's right. Yes. So, my man, I'm glad. So on my other podcast, like it is all me, and I have, well, I could bore you with like, here's from my last episode, all of my notes. Like, I mean, pages and pages of notes. So you are an absolute blessing to be here and be like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this. Like, you have no idea. I'm like, oh, thank God, this is gonna be a walk in the park, man. I'm looking forward to this, for way more reasons than just notes. But yes, that is a big help. So yes, we decided. Full disclosure to those watching, John and I, like we talked about at the beginning of today's show, this is something we've been wanting to put together for several months now at this point. And so in the last couple of weeks, we were like, okay, we're getting close to our schedules lining up to where we can actually, hit the launch button on this. And so we kind of have an idea of what episodes we want to do coming up. And so we decided for our first episode, let's get people to get to know us before we have them try to understand or respect our opinions on things in the future. Kind of like who did he ever beat? What are their qualifications? That kind of thing. So a fun thing in our discussion was you said something about a truth or a lie, and I'm like, stop right there. That's it. We've got to play a game of truth or lie. And
Full disclosure, this is day one, first day of school stuff I use in my classroom.
Oh really? Nice.
Yeah,
that's
it's a nice get to know you game.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I think that's exactly what you said when you said that. I'm like, that's exactly what we need to do then. So yeah. And I do know more than half of what I've got written down, which we've decided on 5 things, I think. If you've got more, fantastic. I've got 5.
I stuck with 4 truths, 1 lie.
Oh, I wish you hadn't even said that much. Okay. So a lot of these you're gonna be like, oh yeah, no, I know that. Of course I do. But we'll kayfabe it, brother. So yeah. How do you want to do this, or how do you do this in your classroom? Is the best.
So I'm gonna read my 5.
Okay.
I'll read all 5 of them, and then I want you to try and guess which one's a lie.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I dig it.
Okay, so here's the first one. I've been to 3 WrestleManias. My favorite wrestler is Chris Jericho. One of my favorite wrestlers is Jimmy Jacobs, and my friends booked him to come to my 30th birthday party. I ran into John Cena at Texas Roadhouse, and Seth Rollins called me to tell me happy birthday.
Okay. All right. My notes have been taken. They're right here. You've been to 3 Manias. Jericho's your favorite. Jimmy Jacobs for your 33rd birthday. John Cena you met at Texas Roadhouse, or Seth Rollins called you for your birthday. Okay.
One of them's a lie.
All right. I will tell you. I will do some elimination here then. Chris Jericho is your favorite wrestler. So I'll mark that off. You did book, or Jimmy Jacobs was booked for your birthday. Okay. Okay. And Seth Rollins did call you.
Yep.
Okay. I wish you would have texted me, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not sure. No, I am. I'm just kidding. You did not meet John Cena at Texas Roadhouse.
That is true. That is a false statement. I met Cena at an Outback Steakhouse.
Oh, very good.
Not Texas Roadhouse.
Very good. Nice swerve, bro.
It's a simple one.
I like it. Okay. So on mine, I've got out of my 5, I've got 3 truths and 2 lies.
Spicy.
Yeah, so I could either change it up to match you, or I can keep it as is.
Keep it.
All right. Okay. So number 1, John Cena is the most famous wrestler I've met. Number 2, I'm an absolute mark for anything Paul Bearer ever did. Number 3, I've got autographs of all the Radicals. Number 4, Earl Hebner once flipped me off less than a foot away. Number 5, Lita once hit on me. 2 of those are fake news, and 3 of those are truth.
Okay, so when Earl gave you the bird, let's be clear, Jared had no clue.
Right.
Like,
so
he's smiling, happy to take the picture, and Earl's
hang on, don't get the finish away. Hang on. So yes, this is a fantastic story, and John, I know I won't give the secrets of the studio away, but I'm looking at you right now. I know you won't be able to see this, but the people are going to see this. I've actually got it queued up right here. And so as you're telling this story, I will let me see here. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Okay, so go ahead and tell the story now.
So Jared is the happiest kid in that whole place. And I think was that Joplin or was that Springfield?
No, that was Joplin. You're correct. Yeah.
So at Joplin, and Jared is thrilled, so happy. It's thank you so much for the picture, Earl. And he starts to walk away, and Earl's like, we're like, Jared, go back, get a real picture. And Jared, no clue.
So right now I've got a picture of you and Earl. So to kind of support your story here, you had had a picture taken of Earl. Like we were standing in line, you were before me. Earl's got his shoulder or his arm around your shoulder with his Sharpie and stuff from him signing autographs. You're smiling, look like $1 million. He's like, hey, this kind of thing. And then I'm next in line. So now they see the picture. I will take you off for a second. So now they see the picture of me, like, cheese into the camera to Earl.
Oh, yeah.
And, I'm just like, exactly like you said, like, oh, this is so cool. Earl Hebner, like the most babyface referee that there is or has been. And I walk away and I'm like, man, that was great. And yeah, I can't remember, was it Earl or was it you guys that were like, hey, you should go back and look at that.
We were all laughing. We're like, Jared, go get a real picture with him.
Oh,
like,
man.
That's funny. It's great.
Yes. So Earl, as I'm looking into the camera, Earl's looking into the camera, but give me a finger. And so then, you smart me up to this. And now the next picture is me working with her. I'm like, okay, brother, let's work. So now we're trying to figure out how we're both gonna do the. He's like, and he's flipping off me, looking at the camera like, really? And I'm like, yeah, no, this is gonna be great. So then now the final picture, and we're both looking right at each other, flipping each other off, like, hey, brother, I know, me too, brother. It's
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's a mess.
So that one is definitely true.
Okay.
Hold on. You mentioned Lita hitting on you. What were the other ones?
Okay. Let me see here. Get you back on the screen.
You have all the radical autographs.
Yes. So, John Cena is the most famous wrestler I've ever met. I'm an absolute mark for anything Paul Bearer ever did, and Paul Bearer meaning Bill Moody. Excuse me. I shouldn't have put Paul Bearer. I should have put William or Bill Moody. Number 3, I've got autographs of all the Radicals. Number 4, which we just touched on, Earl Hebner once flipped me off. That's obviously true. And number 5, Lita once hit on me.
I'm gonna say Cena's true.
Cena is true. And ironically, I did not meet him at a Texas Roadhouse or an Outback Steakhouse. I met him at Hooters. So yeah, and he was actually, when I met him, he was traveling with the Basham brothers at the time. Were his car buddies.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The Paul Bearer thing, you are an absolute mega mark for Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure about Percy Pringle.
Okay.
The Lita thing, I'm not sure. The Radicals, I'm gonna say the Radicals is a lie.
The Radicals is a lie. I do have one of the Radicals autographs, though. I don't have all 3. So in the Radicals, maybe for people that don't know, included Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, and Chris Benoit. I have Eddie Guerrero's autograph from the year that he passed away. So, yeah.
Lita and Percy. The word always on the Paul Bearer is kind of
Mm-hmm.
ooh. And did you meet Lita? And did she hit on you?
I mean, I like that I've stumped you this much that you're really having to think about it.
Well, I mean, three are correct. Now I'm down to the.
I will say I worded everything exactly and have read everything exactly as it was written on purpose. So, don't want to sway you, but
I think the word everything or always, whatever you put with Paul Bearer, I'm gonna say that's the lie.
okay, you are wrong. Yeah, I love Paul. Yeah, all the way back from NWA and Percy, I loved it. The blonde hair. Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. In fact, like you see so much Paul Bearer and Percy Pringle the third. It's how can you not? It carries over very easily. So, yes. So the other lie was, of course, that Lita hit on me. I was hit on by a wrestler, but it was not Lita. So the same night that I meet John Cena at Hooters, there's a whole plethora of wrestlers that are there, and I meet a lot of them, get pictures with a lot of them, autographs, etc. And that was my first time meeting a lot of these guys. One of the people that I asked for an autograph for as they're walking out of Hooters came up to me and hit on me, but I didn't even realize at the time that's what was happening. So the person that hit on me was actually Orlando Jordan, the guy that used to be with JBL. And what happened was he's getting ready to leave out of Hooters, and I say, hey, can I get an autograph? And his immediate response was, you straight? And which I thought meant, am I cool? Like, am I like a mark, or am I whatever? And I'm like, so I'm playing it off, like, yeah, was my answer. And so he signed the paper and walked away, and that was it. And then it wasn't until like after like an hour or two later, I'm like, straight? Oh, no, what? So yeah, he was like as absolutely blatant about it as could be. You straight? I was like, yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. That's my Orlando Jordan story. And yeah, I was not alone when I was sitting there and he asked if I was straight. I was actually with somebody at that time. So he was bold. So yeah, needless to say. Yeah.
Orlando.
Right. Yeah.
Was Lita at the restaurant?
No, no, I'd never
No,
even
just
never even seen her in person in real life ever.
okay.
I tried to curveball you, and that was just a name that popped up that I was like, sure,
Yeah, it worked.
yeah, good deal, success. So yeah, you got one out of my two. That's good.
Yeah.
So I guess you don't know me as well as you think you do, sir.
You think you know me? You think you know
You
me?
think you know me? You think you know me? Yeah. So no, that was great fun and a good suggestion on your behalf for doing the truth or lie. So do you wanna talk about what we're doing on our next episode then, and we can kind of get things
Next
wrapped up?
episode. Well, in my notes it says SummerSlam '92.
Yes, that's what I've got on my notes as well.
Awesome.
So it looks like that's what we'll be doing. We'll be discussing SummerSlam from the year 1992. Do you remember anything about this as far as did you watch it live? Were you actively watching wrestling then, or did you watch this post its debut?
This one I threw out there when we were talking about what to do next because it's one of those Coliseum videos I was renting from Blockbuster.
Same.
And,
Yep.
Yeah, I remember Brett and Bulldog tearing the house down, and I thought it'd be a great one to start with.
Absolutely. No, and same for me. I didn't watch it live. This is before I was watching pay-per-views, but I was going and renting VHS tapes of pay-per-views and stuff. So yeah.
And I think I wore out this VHS copy at my Blockbuster.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. So that's what's going to be happening on our next episode. John, do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to add before we wrap it up and call it a day?
Well, thanks for setting us up. I mean,
Yeah.
full disclosure to everyone listening, Jared is handling all the technical things.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey. I've made mention a couple of times on this show that I've got another podcast that I do. But I have guests and stuff. And it's all in-house, so I don't have any of this over the internet and different locations kind of thing to try and figure out. And it's caused, even though it may not look like it, I've got many a gray hair because of this podcast. But already after the first episode, it is absolutely worth it. I'm so excited for this venture that you and I are getting ourselves into, and I see big lights, bright cities for our future here on the Recliner Wrestling Review Podcast. So I think that's going to kind of wrap it up. And yeah, I appreciate you and your time and all your fun stories. And I'm looking forward to kicking it off next week or next episode, whenever that may be, with SummerSlam '92. So yeah, fun times from childhood, man.
Yeah, and thanks for listening, everybody.
Absolutely. All right, and we'll see you on the next episode.